And we will now hear from Indiana's two best congressmen, IYD convention delegates and guests. It is my honor and great distinction to introduce the Honorable Pete Visclosky, United States Representative from Indiana's 1st Congressional District, and the Honorable Andre Carson, United States Representative from Indiana's 7th Congressional District. We'll hear first from our friend, Congressman Visclosky.
Matt, thank you very much. I really appreciate joining the Young Democrats for their state convention. First of all, it's an honor to be here today with Andre, who is an exceptional public servant, an exemplar of what a member of Congress should be, and a good friend. What I'm really struck by as the chairman of the Defense Appropriations Committee is Andre's work on the Intelligence Committee. It is a thankless task. It is incredibly important for the safety of our nation and the protection of our civil liberties. And so much of what he does, he can never speak about. But that's Andre Carson. He just puts his head down. He works hard. And I must tell you again, given the position I have on defense appropriations, I see the value of Andre Carson's work for the people he represents in his district, our state, and our nation every day. Again, Matt, I really appreciate being on the program with you. Hopefully people understand that we have a long history together, that in fact you worked with us on our staff, and I'm exceptionally proud of you as well. I don't want to continue to call out names here. We have a couple of things to make sure we say, but also I would want to just say how happy I am that again, a lifelong friend, Linda Lawson from Hammond, Indiana, former police officer, state legislator, and again, an incredible public servant, is going to be our candidate for lieutenant governor. It only strengthens our statewide ticket. But again, I think that young Democrat who is participating in the convention, every young Democrat in our state has a particular responsibility given their age, because the issues that we face today, the problems that we have to address are for your future, are for your fellow citizens' future. Certainly encourage you in them. I want to hear from Andre. We all understand the importance of voting. I think we can probably get to that a bit later in the program.
Thank you, Congressman Visclosky. And from all of us young Democrats in Indiana, we thank you for your years of dedicated service to our state and wish you all the best in your upcoming retirement. We will now hear from our friend, Congressman Carson. We are waiting for Congressman Carson to arrive. And so while we're doing that, as Congressman Visclosky alluded to, I did have the honor of serving on his staff as an intern a number of years ago. Being from Northwest Indiana, Pete has been my congressman for many years before I moved down here in Indianapolis. Every young Democrat should know that when Pete was first elected in 1984, he was at the good old age of, if I recall, 33. So he was a young Democrat when he first started his service in Congress, not to mention the number of years he served as a staffer for former Congressman Adam Benjamin, possibly one of the best congressmen to ever serve from Indiana. I know we have that. While we have you on here, Congressman, I would like to ask you a question from our young Democrats.
Sure.
And that would be, what would be your call to action to us young Democrats to support your work and the work of other Democrats in Congress?
First of all, I would suggest that people have to understand that elections matter. Obviously, there are consequences, and we are the party who wants a strong economy, who wants to make sure the dignity of work is recognized as far as making sure people are compensated for that work. The problem we're having today as far as our health crisis simply points out the fact that we have so many Americans without health insurance, without adequate insurance or access to the system. That has to be addressed. But I tell people, after all of my years in public life, I am struck, and not just because of the recent events in places like Minnesota and Georgia. We have a systemic problem in this country that needs to be addressed, and that is the issue of discrimination. It can be discrimination based on sex and pay disparities. It could be discrimination as far as religious belief, the country of origin, but particularly as far as race. I've continually pointed out this is a systemic problem that, again, I think all of us have a particular problem to address every day. In 2015, the Boston Federal Reserve estimated, when they did a study of net median household wealth in the Boston metropolitan area, that for a white household, that net median worth was $247,500. For an African-American household, it was $8. That is a fundamental problem and only one example. So what is our role? It is to be involved and to understand that while there is a presidential election and federal elections, we have state officials that are up for election. We have county officials up for election. And as Joe Donnelly, Senator Donnelly often said after his first election victory for Senate, it would have been easier if there were 22 additional Democratic mayors in the state of Indiana. I think everyone today participating understands that in a Senate in Indiana with 50 members, we have 10 Democrats. In the House, we have 100 members. We have 33 Democrats. We need to find districts to elect state legislators, senators, members of the House. It's not just the statewide race, it's not just the federal races, and also keep an eye on these county races. I would also suggest and encourage you after November, and hopefully we will be successful, and I know you will be active. Don't fall asleep at the switch. I cannot tell you how many people have referred to a year like 2021 as the off year. The fact is, after November, those who have 2-year terms in the legislature for federal office have 18 months until the next election day. People have got to get involved. In 2022, you have those township races, you have county races, you have state and federal races. People ought to be looking ahead. They ought to be prepared. If they're inclined to run, God bless you for doing that. If that's not your bailiwick, find someone whose positions and beliefs that you trust and also share, and get involved. During the spring this year, our good friend Frank Mervan was nominated to the U.S. Congress. But I was struck that people would come up to me and say, well, you know, Frank's just a township trustee. And I would just kind of file that away and say, well, that's your problem for believing that. Township officials are incredibly important. What do you think people like Frank Mervan and the township trustees and those across the state of Indiana do every day? They help people. That's what Democrats do. You know, Andre Carson, we have mentioned, you take a look at his grandmother. She was a township trustee. And I would put my money in a fight any day on Julia Carson, because she dedicated her life day in and day out to helping people one at a time. So that is, if you would, my charge. There are fundamental problems we've got to address. But it's not just an election. It's not just federal or state. It's helping people in our communities, being a good citizen. I think the best thing we can do for our party is between now and November, not only get Democrats elected, but between now and then and thereafter, you're living in a small town, medium-sized city, larger metropolitan area, and somebody points you out and say, you know, she's a Democrat. And you know how much work she did with the food bank and that mentoring program, shelter for battered family, because you're involved every day. That's what Democrats do. They're helping people. So I think there's more to this than just getting ready for an election, which is incredibly important. I'm not dismissing that. But we have to take a more fulsome approach to our party and our activities going forward. That's my belief.
Thank you, Congressman, for your call to action and all the advice you have dispensed to young Democrats over these last many years. And we will now hear from our friend, Congressman Carson.
Thank you very much. What do you say about Pete Visclosky? He is a leader, he is a general, he is a mentor, and he is a seasoned politician. I appreciate his mentorship. One doesn't have to wonder about Pete's influence because it's clear. And he made reference and congratulations to now Congressman Mervan, who is a former trustee. My grandmother was a trustee, as Congressman Visclosky mentioned. I worked at the trustee's office, and anyone who is foolish enough to underestimate the power of the trustee system would be making a tremendous mistake, man, because I tell you, if you want to have your ear to the ground, the trustee's office is the place. The trustee is like a mayor in many ways, and even better, all the people that you get to help along the way doing the real work of public service, those people never forget it. So kudos to Pete Visclosky, who, if I'm Luke Skywalker, he's certainly my Obi-Wan Kenobi, that's for sure. I love him dearly. He's the kind of mentor that fits my style. If you're making a mistake, he's going to let you know, but he's the kind of leader, he's not going to micromanage you. He's going to watch you and grow you in a way like a very wise coach. I encourage each and every one of you not to overwhelm him, but if you have an opportunity to have 1 or 2 minutes with him, ask him the questions you want to ask. And I can tell you, he's not somebody who's going to mislead you. He's going to be very honest with you. You'll find him to be quite insightful. I want to thank each and every one of you. Matthew, I want to thank you. I want to thank all of the leaders, quite frankly. I'm sad to see Congressman Visclosky retire, though it's well-deserved, but I know Pete won't be sitting still, but I have no doubt that he'll continue his work as an effective public servant long after he leaves Congress. I want to acknowledge Director Chris Roman. I want to acknowledge my buddy, my BFF, my Afro-Latina familia, Sister Ariel Brandy. I want to recognize Brother Adi for his great work and all of the other volunteers at IYD. I don't have to remind you all about how important it is to really be here today. Young progressives such as yourselves, I think you guys instinctively understand that this year is like any other election year we've experienced. I think we really stand at a crossroads, and the path that we will take will determine the future of our country. That's why I've been so heartened to see young leaders, young people who have been at the forefront of this movement for change. We're seeing the protests, we're seeing the uprisings. And when it comes to criminal justice, I think young people really get it. A lot of political scientists have said, well, young people, they're not going to turn out en masse in terms of mail-in voting because they're not disciplined enough. I disagree. I've been honored to join several of these rallies in Indianapolis. I've been to quite a few protests in my life, but the energy and the passion in the recent gatherings for racial justice have just been incredibly special. I was honored to speak at one, a massive one. We had 10,000 organized by Black Women in Charge, and super impressive, and Black Lives Matter, super impressive. It turned out to be the largest rally in Indy's 30-year history. But I think that that's further proof that young people are leading the way toward a better and more just society. You know, in Congress, you all have heard that we are ramping up our efforts to address your calls for change. Earlier this month, we introduced the Justice and Policing Act, which proposes really unprecedented reforms in criminal justice. It includes provisions to demilitarize police forces and end qualified immunity for officers who violate people's rights, making lynching a federal crime, and more. So it's a very good bill, and I'll do more to keep working to pass it, but there's still much more we have to do. So that change we so desperately need must come from the ground up. It must come from grassroots. So that's where Indiana Young Dems have always thrived. And I'm urging you all to keep up the amazing work and don't let up on this momentum. So we have to make sure that this energy and this appetite for change comes through at the polls. You know, the Republicans are really counting on progressives to stay at home, but we have to prove them wrong. I can't think of a time, honestly, where it has been more critical to ensure we elect progressives at all levels of government. The situation is dire. We've well lost over 100,000 of our fellow Americans to COVID-19. Our president has no real plan to fight the virus. We are experiencing an unemployment crisis that rivals the Great Depression. Republicans are balking on passing additional stimulus measures to keep families afloat. And we continue to lose Black lives to the epidemic of police brutality and racism, but President Trump seems to care more about tear gassing protesters than I think enacting true reforms. So right now we're experiencing a crisis of leadership that threatens to harm or even repair our country. But I believe our best days are ahead of us. I think if we work together to change course, we'll see progress. And the folks on the call, you all are future members of Congress, future governors, future mayors, future council members, future CEOs, entrepreneurs, future truth tellers. And I just want to thank you for having me on, for having Chairman, the wise one, the great sage, Visclosky on. And again, young people can't do it without having the more seasoned younger people like Pete Visclosky giving insight, giving wisdom, and helping us to blaze trails toward our future. So thank you, Young Dems, for having me. I love you and I appreciate you, and I'm always here for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman. Before you go, we have a question for you from our Young Democrats.
Let's rock and roll.
What is your call to action to Young Democrats to support your work in Congress?
I appreciate that. You know, I'm a big proponent of advocacy, keeping me abreast and informed about upcoming issues that I need to be involved in, but also volunteering for Team Carson, putting together those events where I can engage and listen to your concerns and we can work collaboratively in terms of addressing some of your thoughts. You know, every year I have sent young people to political boot camps that have really helped make investments in them and to hone their political acumen. That's a commitment that I've made. I've also helped prepare young people to run for office, but I would love the engagement, the insights, any upcoming issues that I may miss, or if I'm on the wrong side of things, give me some insight, let me know about this bill and the pros and cons and where we may have missed the mark. But also, more importantly, we would love to get your support on the ground. I tell anybody, if you're interested in being in politics, identify a campaign that shares your value system. You may not agree with everything, but phone banking, going door to door, I mean, this is COVID, it really hones your political instincts and it allows you to kind of get a sense of what people are thinking on the ground, and you build your own a coalition of support in your own army if you ever want to run for office, which is why Congressman Visclosky has been so successful. He has the blueprint. He didn't say he's just going to rely on his Robert Redford handsome looks. He didn't say that he was just going to rely on his encyclopedic mind. No, he built relationships on the ground with people, and those relationships have yielded results for over 30 years. And as a result, he's been able to lend that machinery and that army to other people because they know he's a true public servant. So I'm like Tupac. I'm not hard to find. Work with me, holla at me, and let's get busy.
Thank you, Congressman Carson. Your dedication to serving others and resolving the great issues of our time is something that we need more of in Congress. And speaking
Thank
for
you.
Young Democrats here today, we appreciate both you and Congressman Visclosky to join us today and share your words of wisdom.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now we will hear from another one of our 2020 Young Democrats on the ballot, and then welcome back our Elections Committee Chair, Ethan Hudson, to announce the results of the 9th District Chair race.
My name is Amanda Pauls, and I'm running for Indiana House in District 49. District 49 covers most of the eastern portion of Elkhart County. It includes Goshen, Middlebury, Millersburg, and surrounding areas. I'm currently an at-large member of the Goshen Community Schools Board of Education. While I love that role, being a member of the school board has made it so clear to me all of the ways our state legislature affects the everyday life of Hoosiers, from public education to public health and so much more. New leadership is needed, and we also need to break the Republican supermajority in Indianapolis. And that's why I'm running for state representative. Running for office has made me humble. There is so much to learn, and I'm constantly in awe of the help and support I'm receiving from my community. My advice to you is to get involved and stay involved. Show up, find your unique niche, and the gifts that you can contribute. As one of my friends says, give your time, talent, and treasure for what you believe in. My hope for you is that you find a supportive community with other Young Democrats and that they will encourage you to greater heights for the benefit of all. Now let's go win this November.
No, no, there we go.
Good deal. Hey, thank you, Matthew. And the results for the 9th District Chair are in. Kaisa Goodman, 29 total votes. Corey Ray, 13 total votes. Kaisa Goodman receiving the greatest amount of votes. I hereby declare that Kaisa Goodman has been elected the 9th District Chair for a one-year term beginning July 1st, 2020. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who voted for me. I'm looking forward to working with all of you.
Thank you, Ethan, and congratulations, Kaisa, on being elected to the 9th District Chair. To close our morning session, let's give it up again for our Madam President, Ariel Brandy.
Thank you, Matthew, and congratulations, Kaisa, and to Corey Ray, who has served our organization for a very long time. We thank you for your service, and we are so proud and blessed to be able to have you be a part of IYD. Kaisa, we look forward to transitioning you into your position as the 9th District Chair. And to all of our delegates that voted today, thank you. But now I want to take a moment to reflect on this moment in history, but also for our organization. Many know the story, or some may not, of Pauli Murray, civil rights activist, lawyer, and priest, a Black feminist who spoke up about injustice within institutions through writing letters and joining organizations that work to dismantle the systems that may be. In 1938, she attempted to gain admission as a graduate student at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and she was rejected due to her race. In 1942, Pauli Murray wrote a letter to President Franklin D. Roosevelt on behalf of outreach leaders, criticizing the president for his failures to improve the conditions of Black Southerners. She writes, "I am a Negro, most oppressed, most misunderstood, and most neglected. One of the most neglected populations. Do you feel, as we do, that the ultimate test of democracy in the United States will be the way in which it solves its Negro problem? Have you raised your voice loud enough against the burning of our people?" 78 years later, these words of Pauli Murray still ring very true. We are dealing with the same issues, but we have every opportunity to change this for good. and it starts with us. And in every way, big or small, I have faith that IYD can be at the forefront of generational change. And this is how we do it. Through empowerment. We have to empower our membership to run for office and step into leadership roles in IYD, our constituency caucuses, the Young Democrats of America, our careers, campaigns, and within their local communities. We have to maintain and be committed to uplifting our membership to be a voice within the Democratic Party. And we remain true to equity, committed to diversity, inclusion, racial and gender equity by identifying and calling out disparities when they happen. We have to be able to address them within our organization and among multiple systems that we interact with on a daily basis. And our commitment to racial and gender equity has to be done by making sure that we have programs and interventions to remedy any disparities, and that we stay committed to recruiting diverse membership to join and lead on our committees, within our board, and on our caucuses. And we will start by also having an ethics committee. We have to remain committed in recruiting and endorsing candidates of color, women, members of the LGBT community, and the disability community. And we have to be prepared as Young Dems to talk explicitly about race and implicit bias. We have to understand our community and the challenges that come, challenge policies and procedures in place that have for far too long not worked for us. And we also have to educate ourselves, provide branding and influence opportunities for our membership to be equipped with the things that they need in order to succeed, build chapters, and within their communities, be advocates for understanding policies that impact Young Democrats, their families, and our communities. Establishing administrative procedures that can provide consistency to our meetings, increase the inclusion of women, people of color, our LGBTQ community, and those with disabilities within our organization. And we have to, in 2020 and beyond, remain committed to protecting our right to vote. And we have to dismantle voter disenfranchisement within the state of Indiana. And we can do that by equipping our Indiana Young Dems with the voter toolkit in order to be able to know their rights and to be able to equip their communities with the rights that they need in order to vote. We have to do this. And our engagement has to increase. Our membership and our presence within the Indiana Democratic Party, we have to be able to year-round participate in monthly meetings, trainings, webinar opportunities just like this, and we have to be able to gain campaign skills to be able to lead on social issues and policy reform. But it doesn't stop there, because we have to seek employment, volunteer on Democratic campaigns across the state with having days of action for our endorsed candidates, but also extending our volunteer capacity to statewide races and also to national key races. The work cannot stop here in Indiana. We as Young Democrats can get the work done within our Democratic Party. And we will lobby and organize around issues that deeply impact us as young professionals by partnering with IDP, our constituency caucuses, party leaders, and the Democratic National Committee. But we have to remain invested within ourselves. So endowment. We have to remain committed to making sure that IYD is financially accessible to young Democrats across the state, continuously raising funds year-round and investing in our very own campaigns. We will do this by appointing a finance director along with deputies to support them, making sure that our fundraising plan and our budget is met by the needs of our finance committee and our treasurer. We want all of our Young Dems to have the opportunity to attend conventions like this, the Democratic National Convention, and also Young Democrats of America Committee. By doing this, we can also invest in ourselves to invest in our own campaigns. Our IYD endorsed candidates will need the help financially as well, and we are committed to doing that. Like Polly Murray, we must remain committed in the fight, doing the work, ready to take these issues head on. We must also remember to speak our truth and lead with conviction. And I know that we can do this together. And I look forward to serving with you every single step of the way, because it is our state and our time. So let's show them how Young gets it done. Thank you.
We will now hear from another one of our 2020 Young Democrats who's on the ballot this year.
Hi, my name is Michael Benz, and I'm running for state representative in District 83. That includes Southwest Fort Wayne and Whitley County, up in Northeast Indiana. I'm running for state representative because as a public school teacher, I know firsthand how the current state legislature, namely the Republican supermajority, refuses to prioritize the issues that matter most to residents of Indiana: schools, healthcare, wages, and the environment. Running for office has made me listen much more intently, especially as we're now talking about police reform and efforts towards racial justice and reconciliation. My advice to all of you is to be involved with at least one campaign and to register as many people to vote as you can. And my hope for all of us is that come January 2021, we live in a more compassionate, empathetic, and overall thoughtful state. And that's only going to happen when we elect the right people. Thanks.
Thank you, and thank you, President Ariel Brandy, for your words today. Please take the next 5 minutes, delegates and guests, to grab your lunch, snack, or maybe a lunchtime cocktail. When we reconvene at the Zoom link in the chat, we will welcome our statewide Democratic nominees: Dr. Woody Myers for governor, the Honorable Linda Lawson for lieutenant governor, and the Honorable Jonathan Weitzappel for attorney general. See you soon.